Hey, this is Mirima. You are watching Go for Success. Here we are sharing the success clues from people who have made positive impact on other people's life and hope you can be inspired to take your life and business to the next level. Today I have an extraordinary guest who is a property wealth tycoon. He has inspired and mentored lots of people to become multimillionaire through residential property investment. Hoy Fong is a third-generation New Zealand-born Chinese. As a person of great character, he was a Justice of the Peace for New Zealand, and he has been awarded Queen's Service Medal in 2003. He's a super residential property investor. He has an impressive portfolio of over 30 investment properties with a current market value of over 25 million New Zealand dollars. Ron is also the first ever billion-dollar property coach in New Zealand. Under his coaching company, Ronovation, he and his coach team have mentored about 1,000 students with a combined purchases of over 2,500 residential investment properties, valued at around 2 billion New Zealand dollars. As one of the most successful property investor and coach, Ron is operating an investing strategy and a system that continues to get extraordinary results time and time again. Since the New Zealand government announced the significant housing policy change on 23rd of March 2021, which included increasing the brown line test from 5 years to 10 years and removing tax deductibility of interest cost for rental properties. If you are a property investor and wonder what the change means to me, do I keep investing? What will the property market look like? Are there still opportunities ahead? Where are we now in the property cycle? You are welcome to join me to hear Ron's insight. Hi Ron.
Hi Mary.
Thank you so much for coming to Go for Success.
Thank you for having me.
Ron, I'm curious to know, what was your initial response when you first heard about the news?
When I first knew it, all I saw that the promises of government that there would never be a capital gains tax, never be this or never be that. They were just lies at election time and broke the promises down. So that was the disappointing part of it, because stability in business and government and anything that you do, we need to know that what's going to happen is going to happen. Not sudden changes in the one year and like that gives us a little bit of unrest.
Right, yeah.
However, that was my initial thing. Then within every measure like this, I started to think positive. There's always opportunity. And the following days, I had a lot of people asking, what do I do? Is this the end of property? Is this the end of the world? Shall I sell?
Right.
And I thought, my gosh, if everyone wants to sell, there's opportunity.
Right. You still think residential property investment can still be a vehicle for financial freedom?
Absolutely. If you look at history of business, going right back to the beginning of the 20th century, in the 1900s, whenever there's a crisis or a war, people turn to gold. But with today's population and economics of every country, there isn't enough gold around. So now they turn to properties. So if there's a crisis on, the share market drops, they don't turn to gold, they turn to property.
Right.
Now, we had the GFC, global financial crisis, and what actually happened is everyone thought that was the end of the world. Later on, there was depreciation on properties. They took that away, which is very much like what today's one is, the drop in interest rate. So that was a crisis then. There was a lot of pipelines to make it harder for property trade. And so the list goes on. The reality is, if you look at the statistics for the last 10 years, property prices have more than doubled. It's actually just raced up far down. I can see no difference with the interest rates removal of being deducted, as was with depreciation deduction.
Right.
Same thing. Everyone will have a gut reaction for about 3 months, maybe 6 months maximum. But in that time, whilst everyone is in turmoil, there's opportunity to just keep buying properties, but bargain harder.
Right.
And eventually after 6 months, which will be in the timing right now, 6 months is always a drop in properties over winter months. But our New Zealand weather here, come Labour weekend, which is late October, home buyers will be out there, investors will be out there, the sun is shining, birds are singing, and it'll be business as usual. The only difference is following Warren Buffett's strategy on property and business investing is when the going gets tough, keep going. And my philosophy is do the opposite when everyone else is selling. That's the time to buy. And right now is that time. Just keep buying, but just buy harder, bargain harder.
But Ron, would you think these will have big impact on some investors because of the borrowing capacity? Would it be affected by
That's why I think a student investor like myself, with LVRs much lower than 50%, it's not going to affect us at all. Sure, I'm going to have to pay another $2,000 per year per property roughly,
Right.
but at the
Because
end
of
of the day,
tax deduction removal.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, because of the tax deduction removal. But they will be graduated over the next 4 years. So it's just a matter of increasing rents. What's actually going to happen in the pattern is that as the new mum and dad investors that would have come on stop investing, and if you take into account everyone's building homes at the moment, but no one is providing additional rental sources.
Right.
So the rental market will drop of supply and the rent therefore increase. The other one is that whilst everyone is buying new properties, if you look at opportunities there, if I stand on top of Mount Eden, I look out to Pakuranga, look out to Mangere Bridge, look out to Blockhouse Bay in Auckland, all that under the Unity is going to be rebuilt with higher density. That tells me there's a lot of properties going to change hands, and if I walk away from that opportunity, we will miss out. So the only thing is to get involved and jump into it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm an advocate for always property investing because property investing still doubles every 7 to 10 years in Auckland. The more central it is, the quicker the doubling. The more further out you get, like out to Takanini and out to Helensville and out to
Pukekohe now,
Pukekohe,
isn't it?
they will still take 10 years to double. So rightfully, better to just stay in central location. Because just imagine when the borders open, what's that going to happen? All these students will come back. Expats from Australia, UK, Hong Kong, everywhere, even in China, will come to New Zealand for opportunity. But we've just won the America's Cup.
Right.
Now, the current America's Cup was a bit of a fizzle because of COVID. It stopped a lot of countries from competing.
Right.
But the next one, for sure, there's going to be a lot of countries, as much as maybe 14, 15 countries competing. That will bring media to New Zealand.
Right.
And that will bring world attention and the lifestyle of New Zealand, the way to be and the place to be.
Right.
So opportunity is all within the range of this current boom that's coming.
That's really very optimistic outlook, for the property market. So I know you're a strong advocate of buying a home, but under this current market, say, for people who may not be able to cope with the new rules, would you suggest they sell down some of their properties, or they still need to try to hold on?
Property investing is about accumulating, buy and hold, renovate to add value, and recycle the other life. It's about accumulating. Those who know me from business, when I used to own the tofu shops, I used to bring in a container of soy sauce every month, and I'd sell it for 50% markup, and I'd sell it for 50% markup. Having sold it, I'd order another container, and I'd flip that container, and I'd do this month in, month out. Now, no one ever said that I was a soy source investor, right? Now, just because you start flipping properties and the commodity just happens to be property, it doesn't mean you're a property investor. You're just a trader. Now, property investing is about getting a passive rental income that you buy once and it gives you rental income for the rest of your life. But it also, hidden within there is capital growth. You don't get that if you're trading, because once you've sold the property and will continue to increase in value, then you'll lose that. Classic example, if you were to buy a $1 million property and it doubles in 10 years, that will give you for the rest of your life a capital growth of $2,000 per week on $1 million property. That is more than rent, right? But if you hung onto that property for 10 years, you get not only the $2,000 capital growth, but you also get about a $700 or $800 a week rental income. So not only you get in that base, 10%, 4%, that's 14%, and it's growing as against putting $1 million in the bank and earning silly 0.5% per annum. I'd far rather the 14%, which is inflation. But the good thing about it is when you own the property for a sufficient amount of time, like 1 or 2 years, you can draw your equity and then have 2 properties, right? And then from 2 properties, another year later you can have 4 properties. To give an example, back in 2003, I restarted my property investing because I had a lot before and sold it all to developers, to free shops. But I found there's no capital growth, only wall growth. So anyway, when I got back to the property with $180,000, I managed to buy 21 properties through putting it down as a deposit, renovating them, and recycling equity out in a couple of months to buy more. That was good then, but you can still do it today. Buy one this year, add value, 6 months later, buy 2 more, and then you've got 3 properties to help you buy another 2. So before you know, within 2 years you've got about 5, and you just keep growing this mathematical number.
As the rule of game changes, are you going to add some new strategies apart from buy and hold for residential property investment?
Obviously you have to accommodate changes in the law, but the basic strategy is still the same. It's been working for the last 100 years, and I'm sure it'll keep working for the next 100 years. The worst case scenario is if it doesn't work anymore in New Zealand, we just go to Australia, we'll go to America, and continue the same strategy. It's unlikely the strategy to change at that point, because New Zealand needs properties, right? We have a population growth expected in Auckland alone of another 1 million people in 20 years. Overseas standards doesn't sound a lot, but when you've only got 3.5 million people in New Zealand, of which 1.6 million of them are in Auckland, Auckland is going to be half the population of New Zealand in Auckland. Wellington is the next largest with only 500,000 people. Christchurch, Hamilton, even less. But Auckland is going to grow 2 Wellingtons in the next 20 years. Whereas Wellington took 180 years to 200 years to grow to what it is today. So if you look at those sort of numbers, it's huge. And central Auckland, which is what I like most, it's run out of land, right? So it can only build upwards. But fortunately, the land isn't totally restricted, because we're early stages of the unitary plan, which means most land in Auckland can go to 3 or 4 stories. You can buy now at a single story because there's too much of it, and just sit on it, and within 10 years it will be multi-story.
The other thing, the government would encourage people to buy new builds so they can exempt from the current rules. So for that reason, people are thinking about going to buy new properties. What's your take on that?
The only difference is buy a new build, which is further out of Auckland Central, and save you $50 a week in tax deduction. or buy and for the same money, you know, $1 million property in Hobsonville or something like that, or buy $1 million unit in Central Auckland. It cost me $50 for I'll certainly get $50 more a week rent. Same thing. It's actually a numbers game.
What's your take, say, buying a $1 million house in Hobsonville in comparison with buying a 3-bedroom unit in Central Auckland?
Well, for a home point of view, definitely Hobsonville is the emotional value. But for investment value, definitely the Central Auckland one. Now, people like things new and shiny if they live there. But if they're not going to live there, don't buy it. So at the end of the day, it's location, location, location. It's important to have rental income, definitely. The problem with the further out you go from Auckland, the yield is higher, but the capital growth is lesser. I would rather have a much higher capital growth and a zero yield.
Right.
Right. And in the long term, after 10
So
you'll still
basically
make
break-even cash flow.
break-even cash flow.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a break-even cash flow, but if there's $100 we can afford rent after a few years, because rents do increase,
Right, yeah.
I'd rather have the capital growth, which won't give me on $1 million property or half a million. It won't give me just 100,000 a year for 10 years. It's more like it'll give me 125,000 a year over 7 years.
Right, yeah.
The other one too, your tenants change. You have more problems with tenants. It's known fact that the lower down the socioeconomic scale you go and you buy those properties, taking the extreme, which I think one of the worst areas is like Cleveland. If you buy in Cleveland, you get high cash flow, but you get tenants that won't pay.
Right, yeah.
I'd far rather have a steady cash flow from a professional tenant, because let's face it, there are still people professional people who still want to rent properties. Like at the moment, I've got doctors, I've got lawyers, I've got accountants, because I'm in that professional type of area of double Amazon. I've got ambulance drivers. Now these people always pay, they look after the place, so I have a lower maintenance versus one property which I do have in South Auckland. And I don't sell it because it's good cash flow.
Right.
But when I think about it, I'm always have to chasing the rent, and I also have to change the stove about every 3 years.
Repairs and maintenance costs.
Much higher. And of course, when recession comes at certain times, high unemployment, they're the first ones not to pay.
Right, yeah.
So I'd rather sleep at night knowing that I don't think about what rent I'm getting on my extra base, because I know it's being paid. I just think, I wonder what the value is going to be in another 5 or 10 years. I sleep much better that way. And imagine you multiply that out. Do you want to have 30 problem properties in South Auckland, or 30 nice, comfortable properties in Central Auckland? Which one's going to give you more money?
Sure, definitely quality tenancy.
Yes, quality tenancy, quality properties.
That comes to another question, Ron. Say now, because we're facing the issue now, the tension now. So some people say maybe it's time for me to reshuffle my portfolio. I sell down my South Auckland or low socioeconomic area properties and replace them with good area or high capital growth area. Is that a good approach, or they should just hold on?
If you're getting surplus, it is a good approach. But if you only got one or two, no. Use the cash flow that's coming from those 4 areas and just start buying better ones. And eventually, when you replace them, then sell them. Don't sell them and then replace it, because you'll be caught out in the market. The market is racing upwards at the moment. We're actually only at the foothills of the boom at the moment. People think, the boom is nearly over. It hasn't started yet. No, it hasn't started yet. We're only in what we call a recovery. If you look at historically for the last 50 years, so 1962 was the start of the boom, 1972 was the start of the boom, 1992, 2002, 2012 were the starts of the boom. So when's the next start? 2022. What we have is a recovery market from a rise and then drop and a maybe it's a little bit above. And if it's a little bit above, it's only because of COVID, the fear of missing out. That's why everyone's buying at the moment.
Right.
But there's plenty of... the shift is people are locked down. They are actually saving money, I believe.
Right.
I'm talking about the people who are earning money, have lots to spend less, and now in this mode of, I need to buy a house, I need to do something, right? Instead of travelling and spending it overseas and investing in other businesses, they are now buying property. And because a certain section of the market is buying property, the rest of everyone else has decided, I better buy too. And that's where fear of missing out. Toilet paper, exactly 12 months ago, was plenty in the supermarket, plenty in the shop, plenty at home, plenty imported in.
Right.
But within 2 weeks, everyone was worried that they were going to get into the poo.
Running out.
Right. And so then everywhere else that bought toilet paper. The same with properties. I think it's just mindset at the moment. Everyone's worried about missing out. The only difference is the government has suddenly picked up another $1 billion in taxable income. That's all they've done. They're the only winners. They're not going to build more houses all of a sudden than what's happening.
Another thing is, government also about new build. They encourage people to build new buildings if they have big sections. I know you own quite a few properties with large sections, and I know you still decide to buy.
I want to discourage social businesses. Definitely do. But if you're talking about investing, now is the wrong time to develop, because houses, we're into a boom, so houses will go up in value, right? And if you develop, the value of your house will go up with it. So the profit between the normal house rise and your development is not a lot. Far better to just go out and buy a whole lot of properties now, already built, and you buy them at this price. And naturally with the boom, there will be this price, but not if you develop. The best time to develop, I believe, is in a recession when property values are like this. Right? There's no such thing as a price rise. So if you develop, you'll be getting your price rise. Now the problem now, if you develop now, the first thing that's going to happen, if everyone starts thinking this, then there's not going to be enough builders. Today, as it is, there's
everywhere, construction everywhere.
But it's really only normal construction. But you'll find a lot of them are actually housing New Zealand, for housing New Zealand tenants, not for the average homeowner. Right. Now, what's happening for the ordinary homeowner is happening out in Tasmania and Austin. So to get rid of the shortage over 10 years, we need to build 56,000 houses a year. And we don't have the ability to do that. Even today, we have a shortage of materials. There's not enough toilet bowls. There's not enough taps. There's not enough air conditioners just for the current market. So if everyone is going to rush out and go and build and develop, I can tell you now, there's not enough builders. We have a shortage of builders. And today's average builder already has enough work for 18 months. So things are on occasion. So it's not going to happen overnight. Bringing in these taxations, all it does is discourage new investors. But the older investor has more opportunity to keep on.
They have enough capacity.
And what the government has just done is, by bringing in a tax like that, they will stop people creating new accommodation for rental properties. And you'll always get a certain amount of people always renting. Professional people especially, who they plan on being a doctor overseas or a lawyer overseas or this sort of stuff. So they're not interested in buying. They're building their careers. They're building, they're not ready for family yet. So you'll get professional people who tend to marry in their 30s, right? But they started living and working in their 20s. Now there is a growing gap in this. But at the end of the day, I don't think they realise what's causing the shortage. To me, I believe the shortage is baby boomers. We're getting older. Now, our parents, they used to live into their 70s and pass into the next world in their mid-70s to 80s. But baby boomers, a lot of us are still working at 70 because we want to, we're fit, and we're living into our 90s. Because baby boomers are holding on to their bed or their house or their accommodation for an extra 20 years. For the next 20 years, there's going to be a housing shortage. We need to double up.
希望您从 Ron 的访谈中获得一些有价值的收益。欢迎您把您受到的最大的启发或收获留言告诉我们。如果您希望了解房地产投资的哪些话题，也欢迎留言，以便我们更好地帮助您。与 Ron 的下一次访谈是关于如何成为一个成功的房地产投资人。欢迎点击订阅并关注。感谢您的收看，下期节目再见。